What is going on, Diesel Nation? We're excited to have you guys with us today on the Diesel Podcast. Today's episode comes directly from Diesel Nation. Justin had reached out to us with a really cool 6-liter, sent in a bunch of pictures on Instagram, was telling us about the truck. We thought you guys would love to hear about it, so he's going to sit down with us today, tell us about the truck's history, what he built it for, people who have helped along the way, and what his goals are with the truck. Before we get to it, though, want to encourage you guys, make sure and head on over to our Discord. We've just got over 500 of you on there. It's really cool to see all the different things you guys are working on, all the questions that you ask, whether it's, about an episode, maybe you want somebody on, or you want a topic covered, or just about how to build your truck. So you're going to see a code up on the screen. You can just enter that code to join, or there's going to be a link down below to be able to do it. It's completely free. We have tons of different sections with Cummins, Duramax, Powerstroke, technical information, episode guest suggestions, just general talk. We would have some sections for like EcoBoost and Jeeps and things like that. So we know that we're all truck guys. We also have other toys that we like to play around with. So got sections on there for you as well. Also, if you'd like to be able to help out the podcast, help us grow, we have a Patreon. There's going to be a link down below for that. There's some exclusive perks that you get as a member of Patreon, and it starts as low as $3 a month. And there's a couple other ones past that where you can be the executive producer for an episode. You can potentially have your truck be our podcast cover, which is what goes out on all the podcast apps. You're going to see on YouTube, tons of different things like that. All right, let's get to today's episode with Justin and chatting about his 6-liter Powerstroke. Justin, welcome to the Diesel Podcast. I'm excited to chat with you today. It's always a pleasure to talk with guys who like to race, built their trucks. I remember you sent us some pictures on Instagram, and I saw the truck, and I'm like, man, this thing means business. This isn't like a grocery getter. Like, this thing's ready to go to the track. So I appreciate you sitting down and chatting with me today, and I look forward to learning more about your truck.
Yeah, man, it's a pleasure. This is a milestone for me.
Well, tell me a little bit about it. What year it is, how you purchased the truck, if it was something that, you always had your eye on to do, or sometimes these things just kind of fall into your lap and then they, take on kind of a whole mind of its own.
Yeah. So, I've always been kind of a diesel fan. I always just, the noise, the smoke, stuff like that, but, didn't know much about them. I've owned the truck for about 5 years now, I think. Yeah, it's really close to 5 years. I bought it right after Harvey that hit Houston. It was a flood truck. So an insurance company purchased from the original owner of the truck. So I'm the second owner of the truck. And I found it on a website that you can purchase, like, vehicles that have been totaled or whatever. And my stepdad was like, hey, this is going to be a good truck. Look at the paint. It looks good. And it was sitting on the brake rotors. Had no wheels, no tires. I'm looking through the pictures, and it had no interior in it. I mean, there was a motor and trans, front rear diff, and it was, King Ranch. And I was like, oh, that's nice. That's cool. I don't really want to do all the work, but hey. So we ended up purchasing the truck for $4,500.
Wow.
And we played with it for like a day and a half, got it running. My stepdad has a 6-liter, so we had some spare wheels and tires. And so we kind of threw it together and got it running on everything that was in it, as we purchased it. So anyways, did that, ended up investing a little bit of my own money in it, try to make it look nice and put some wheels and tires on it, stereo. We bought seats. We ended up going with like a 2010 model King Ranch seats, center console, front and rear, the back bench seat, the front and rear captains with the new style center console. And we also updated the door panels. If anybody wants to take that on, good luck. Don't ask me, because it was a pain in the butt. Little bit known to me, it was a wiring nightmare, and I'm not really good with electrical stuff, but I had to learn. So we knocked it out, and they all worked. So.
Now, when you bought the truck, did you just want something to cruise around in, or were you thinking, hey, I want a platform that I want to get into, and then as time goes by, I want to start to build power with it and start to get into that?
I'm a gearhead. Everything that I own is Got to go fast. Initially it was, I was working in construction at the time, so I needed something that I could, throw material in the back or haul pull a trailer or whatever. And my stepdad and I always kind of fared towards the 6-liter platform. In the HUI system, we knew it, so we liked it, and it was a fair price, and that's kind of where it all started with it as a daily, and it wasn't supposed to get so crazy, but any extra money that I had, I would add a performance part here and there. Obviously we tuned it, and we studied the motor 3 times because I kept blowing head gaskets, just pushing the stock platform to its absolute limit, just seeing where the weak points were and learn from that, and go from there, man. So it was fun. I'm gonna be honest with you, that as a stock platform, it's a stout engine. So
I know a lot of people are looking, well, especially with the market now and where new trucks are. I know I've said this on podcasts before, but I always kind of keep my eye on, hey, what's for sale around me? And I don't see a whole lot. And there's also, a lot of enthusiasts out there, they want to get an older truck that doesn't have some of the complications of the newer ones.
Right.
And I think that's what's something that's really cool about the 6-liter is that you can make it reliable. You can drive it every day. You can use it at the job site or just, whatever you might be using it for. But then guys like yourself have also pushed it to this performance side that if you want to do that, you don't have to go out and get, a 3rd-gen Cummins, or you don't have to do a Cummins swap or any of that stuff. And I wanted to kind of focus in on that part is, when you decided, at that point you'd done the head studs 3 times, and those pictures I saw where that thing's sitting mean on drag radials, like how did that transformation take place?
So obviously I was daily driving it, and I was in Houston, and I dropped a lifter. And I'm sorry, I didn't drop a lifter. I had a lifter failure, so I was worried about the cam being scarred. We got the truck towed back to the shop, and that weekend we tore it down and saw that the cam was messed up. And I was like, look, I kind of had thrown my hands in the air, and I was like, I'm done with this thing. It's taking me through the ringer. I had just the notorious 6.0 stuff going on, and I was like, what do I do? And so in the back of my mind, it's like, well, I'm going to spend the money, regardless if I get a new truck or if I rebuild this motor or whatever. So I kind of sat down and put pen to paper, and I was like, you know what? I really like the truck. I've already invested this much time in it. Me and my stepdad worked on it from day one, and so that kind of meant a lot to me. And I wanted to build more power. So I said, look, I can spend X amount of dollars and we can completely go through this motor. Machine work, cam, pistons, rods, heads, push rods, basically front to back. We can build this thing to handle whatever we want to throw at it. And we can see what this platform is completely capable of. So I was like, all right, this is what we're going to do. So we did that. While we had the transmission out, I was like, we're going to be building some high horsepower out of this truck. And it's already out. So, I'm the type of person that's buy now, cry later.
Yeah.
So we got a hold of RevMax. And I was like, hey, this is what I'm going to be pushed. This is about the horsepower rate that I'm going to be at. What do you think? Maybe a little bit more because I have bigger plans for the truck now that I'm building the motor. They were like, oh, okay, well, this is what we would suggest. So we ended up purchasing a RevMax rebuild kit for the transmission, along with a billet intermediate shaft, a billet output shaft, or billet input shaft, and we actually went to another company for the torque converter. We there's a local company here in Texas, just north of Dallas, Texas Performance Converters, that have made converters for my stepdad and I in the past with some of our hot rod cars. So we got a hold of them, told them what we were doing, which was kind of a learning curve for them as well, because apparently whenever you build high horsepower gasoline vehicles, it's about the cam on what stall they put in it. So that's new to me. I didn't know. But in the motor, we went with, I got a hold of Paul at Dynamic Diesel Performance. And so I called him and I was like, hey, man, I'm going to be rebuilding this motor. This is the power range that I want to be in. What do you suggest? And he's like, go with my stage 2 engine rebuild kit. I said, okay, cool. So we did that, and I made a few adjustments to that kit. I think he only sells like 100 pound valve springs, but I decided to go with the 120 pound valve springs. Basically anything and everything that guy sells, it's in the motor. Callie's rods. He actually used to make a tooled steel low pressure oil pump. And if you know anything about these trucks, when you get to high RPMs, that factory low pressure oil pump is notorious for exploding. So I thought that was pretty cool that he had that out. And the first initial build on this truck, we had 205 100s and a KC Stage 2 turbo. I wouldn't suggest those injectors with that turbo just because they don't atomize the fuel as well. So anyways, we did that. Drove the truck for a little while, and then I got invited to Dorian's at PSE's 10-year anniversary for the shop in Houston. And so a buddy of mine and I loaded up in the truck and went up there, and they had a dyno there. I think Mavericks diesel was the dyno that they were using. And so we threw the truck on and gave it hell, and ended up blowing. I ended up changing it out to a non-VGT charger, to a 369 Borg Warner with the Maryland Performance kit. Went up there. And the only reason I changed the charger is because I had never experienced a non-VGT before. And I'm going to be honest, it's not a daily driving charger unless you pair it absolutely right, which is kind of difficult if you haven't been in the industry long enough. If you get a hold of somebody like me or some of the other Powerstroke guys that have done it, even Charlie Fish, I talk to him on a daily basis, and he's like, "This, I don't typically sell non-VGT chargers to daily driven trucks," and now I know why. So, anyways, went 369. Sorry, I'm all over the place. Went 369 with 205 100 injectors, put it on the dyno, and made a pretty spectacular number for myself at about 65 pounds of boost, which I don't recommend as well. And we ended up blowing the bellows on the up pipes. So the guy that was operating the dyno was like, "Man, I feel something in my feet." And I'm like, I don't know. I'm not in the truck. I can't tell you what's wrong with it, but it's idling great. So go for it again. Popped the hood on it, saw smoke coming out from the engine bay, and I was like, "Oh, well, I know where this is going." And we had an hour drive home. Anyways, got back to the house, parked it, and started looking around. We found the bellow that was busted, and I have them, and I'll send you a picture of them, man. They are about that much longer than they're supposed to be. And just, ballooned, bro.
Wow.
And we weren't monitoring much. I was using an SCT live wire just to monitor whatever OBD2 parameters were available to me. But if I would have known better, we would have had drive pressure on there and, done something about that. But, it was a ripper at the time. Just getting it up on boost was a little bit of a pain. But anyways, we parked the truck, and I ended up, my girlfriend and I she got pregnant and with twin boys. And so I was like, well, I guess I got to get a dad car. So I went and purchased a vehicle, and that's what I was daily driving. And I moved down here to Angleton and started managing this shop. And the truck was just sitting in the back shop for about 4 months. And all the guys here were like, man, you have all this money wrapped up in this truck. What are you going to do with it? I have no idea. I'd already gotten with Josh at Maryland Performance Diesel, and I was like, hey, man, the up pipes blew. I know y'all have some updated ones with the bellow locks on them. Is there anything that I can do to get another set? And he's like, yeah, we'll just warranty them out. And I was like, you don't have to do that. I'll pay for them. I screwed them up. He's like, no, don't worry about it. So shout out to Josh. He's a good dude. Anyways, so truck sat for a couple months. The guy's like, what are you going to do with it? What are you going to do with it? And I was like, well, let's build a race truck. And they're like, a race truck? And I was like, yeah, I love drag racing. I love everything about it. I've always raced something. And they were like, okay, well, where do we start? I was like, well, the motor's built. Transmission is completely built. We just need to lighten this thing up and make more power. And I was like, let's go for about 1,000 horsepower, somewhere in that realm. So I started doing some research and getting a hold of some people that were in the racing industry, for a long time. Austin Denny, Charlie Fish, Dorian at PSE. Another guy that helps me a bunch is Logan Schneider, that owns Syntex Diesel in New Braunfels. All those guys have been around the racing scene for a very long time. So, and they are the friendliest people you ever talk to over the phone and in person. They're great. Any knowledge that they have, they will spill their guts out telling you what to do and what not to do. So kind of had an idea of what we were going to do. So we started on it. We cut the bed out, relocated the lift pump. I bought a fuel cell, and here at the shop that I manage now, Modern Diesel Legion in Angleton, I have a technician named Ryan, and he loves fabbing stuff. Just building crazy things. That's his thing. So I was like, hey, Ryan, I want to take this and I want to put it in the back of the bed. And he's like, all right. I said, what do I need to do? He's like, well, let's take the bed off. Let's do that. So we started at the back of the truck and moved forward, right? So mounted the fuel cell. I had an idea that I wanted a battery mounted in the back, for weight distribution and really just to cut out everything under the hood that I could, so that it would be easier for us to work on it at the track. And the AC is a pain in the butt to get around while, under stock trucks. So I was like, that first to go. As soon as the cap's off, that is coming out. So anyways, did that. I knew I wanted to run some nitrous. So we got that, got a Darrell 40-row trans cooler, mounted it on the rear wall of the bed, and also mounted the AirDog 165 on the bed. Once we got that done, I kind of had an idea of, all right, so now we need to move forward. So pulled the cab off, and the truck sat for, I would say, another month, because I didn't know what turbocharger I wanted to do. I didn't know what injectors I wanted to do yet, whose or what. And I think I was, most likely what I was going to do is go to S400 frame charger. And I got a hold of Oliver at O-Dog's Diesel Performance. That guy is a fabricating genius. We've got his intake on the truck. It works phenomenal. But anyways, I got a hold of him, and I was like, hey, I want to do something different. And he's like, what's up? And I was like, I want to run a small frame charger with nitrous. And he's like, well, people do it all the time. I said, nah, like a lot of nitrous. And he goes, well, are you gated? And I said, no. I said, look, I have the up pipes from MPD. We can modify those to put on the truck with a gate to bring down drive pressure. Now, the whole time that I'm kind of figuring out which way I want to go with this truck, I'm learning as well. Mind you, I had no idea what half this stuff is that, you know, we're having to do and why. So I'm just asking questions and questions and questions and questions, and doing research on YouTube and looking at what gas guys do to make power out of those little cars and what size chargers they're using, and talking to Austin Denny and Charlie, and just anybody I could reach out to that would reply. So I sent him the exhaust housing and up pipes off the truck. And I said, I've got to have a hood stack. It's like the coolest thing now, you know, everybody's got to have a hood stack. And he goes, all right, cool. So he's kind of texting me back and forth like, hey, this is what I'm coming up with, but it's going to be super expensive. And I was like, well, I'm on a budget. I've got kids on the way. And so I can't just expend all of my finances towards this truck. He goes, I've got an idea. I said, cool. What is it? I'm going to put a flange on the exhaust housing of this turbocharger and weld it on there for the wastegate. I said, all right. So when he got done with that, it kind of like dawned on me. I'm like, man, I'm turning this thing into a race truck. I'm not going to be able to, I mean, it is fully capable of driving on the street. I don't, because if you've ever been to Texas, like right now, it's probably 90 something degrees outside, and we just had a rain, so the humidity index is probably through the roof.
And no AC.
And no AC in the truck. So it's just not the ideal, you know, circumstances to drive this truck on the street, but it is fully capable of driving on the street. Still has a radiator and all. So anyways, I finally got those back, and I was like, all right, we're going to keep the small frame turbo, and we're probably going to do some 33150s so that we can stick with a stock injection pump. Because asking around, I was like, do I need to do dual pumps? You know, because it's an option. I don't really want to, but if I have to, I will. So that's when we get on the phone with Warren Diesel Injection, and we talk to those guys. So look, I got a brand new pump in the truck. Now, mind you, I've only have I have less than one oil change on this new build whenever all this takes place, right? So it's fresh, and the transmission as well. So I mean, I the first time I changed the fluid in it, everything looked good. I was like, wow, okay, all right. And I was still working at Syntex. But anyways, so I get a hold of those guys. I'm like, hey, what is the largest injector that I can run on a stock H-pop without losing ICP? And so the gentleman I talked to over there, I don't remember his name. It wasn't Jesse yet. So he goes, yeah, you can run stock H-pop. I said, cool. I need a set. So I got a set in the truck right now. I'm going to just send those in, get those rebuilt from you guys, and send them back. And I kind of gave him a brief description of what I was trying to do with the truck. And he's like, all right, yeah, we'll help you out. So I did that. So last year, not this previous year, whenever Ziegler busted out 3,000 horsepower on the dyno, but the year before that, my stepdad and I went to UCC. And I met a guy by the name of Brian Liu, and he is the shipping and receiving guy at Bullseye Power Turbochargers. So I hit him up, and I was like, hey, what's up, dude? You know, how's it going? I had to send him some pictures of the truck and posted it on Facebook and Instagram. And I was like, I need a turbocharger. He goes, I want to be a part of what you're doing. He's like, if I have to buy the turbo, if I have to rebuild the turbo that you have, like, let's get our heads together and see what's going on. And I was like, all right, cool. I said, well, I got this BorgWarner 369. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. I can send that in. And I also had a S400 476. And he was like, well, either way, it's going to cost the same. I said, well, all right. I kind of want to stick with this S300 because I already have the pedestal and the up pipes for it. So that's where cost came into play. So I sent him the turbocharger. They rebuilt it to their 368 Bullseye Power BMW charger. and got it back from them. And if you've never seen a Bullseye Power Turbocharger or their wheels, they look absolutely wicked, and they perform above every expectation that I've had currently. So they are a top of the line charger. That's why they cost so much. You're paying for what you get. So anyways, got that back, started tinkering with the truck, and I'm like, man, we're going to be building quite a bit of power. How are we going to set it to the ground? That was my, it's all, let's build all this power. And then you get out on the street and it's tearing up drivetrain components, or the engine jumping or whatever. And I'm like, we got to do something for it. I just don't want it to happen. So again, buy once, cry once, right? So I got a buddy of mine that owns a fab shop, and he builds lift kits for he's probably built 10 or 15 lift kits for SEMA trucks. So he knows all about geometry and setting this stuff up. And I initially was looking at like some flight fabrication bars and stuff like that, because Miles Flight, he knows what he's building and he knows it's good. And everybody that is racing that has a good race truck has Miles Flight stuff on it. So it's quality material. So I hit my buddy up and I said, hey man, I'm building this race truck over here. I need a 4-link setup for the front and I need some traction bars for the back. And he goes, all right, figure out the dimensions, send them over to me, and let me fab something up, see if it works. So Keaton at KM Metalworks here in Angleton, a local buddy of mine, built the 4-link and the rear track bars, brackets, Heims. I mean, we got, I think they're Jimmy joints. They're rebuildable, greasable Heims. So they're really nice. If you're not running those, you probably should, because if you've ever had a steel-on-steel Heim, after a while and you can't grease it, it just squeaks and it's dreadful. So got all that and started trying to figure out what shocks. So I knew I wanted to coil over the rear end. So we took all the overload springs out of the rear end and kind of sitting on that for a little while. I got a hold of Charlie Keeter and I was like, hey, I know that you had coilovers in the rear of your truck. What were you running? So he told me, he was like, get a set of QA1s. I don't remember the part number, but that's what I was running. So, okay, cool. So with shocks, you have expansion and then your contraction, right? So we figured out what the distance was, fully expanded or extended and fully collapsed, called QA1. Those guys are phenomenal. They suggested these rear coilovers with the spring rate that we're running. It's a 350 by 150 progressive spring rate. Because remember, initially I wanted to daily drive this truck still.
Yeah.
And even though I'd already cut out the bed, I was like, well, you see this going down the street, you're probably not going to screw with it. And plus it's a head turner. So, which I probably will. I'll probably take it home. It's still registered. It's a street truck. So ended up buying QA1. I got single adjustable shocks in the rear and dual adjustable up front. And if you decide to do that, give those guys a call about setting that stuff up, because I literally called them 2 days before Texas Truck Jam last weekend. And I was like, hey, I haven't ran this truck down the street. Where's a midpoint for this? And they're like, well, you have 18 positions. You can go halfway. And I would do this in the rear. What does a truck weigh? And I was like, well, the truck weighs 6,580 pounds. They're like, all right, do this. Taking it down the track the first time, it hooked and it went straight. And I was like super, super excited. But anyway, so that's kind of where it got to. Suspension wise, there was some fab stuff that I did. Like we ordered a Flexolite electric radiator fans, and I got rid of the degas bottle under the hood. Just because, one, it's always in the way. Number two, it's a pain in the butt to work around. I'm all about simplicity. So if we can re-engineer something, I will. So I actually got with Austin Denny because he was running a stock style radiator with a radiator cap on it, and I was like, "Hey, how are you running that?" And he's like, well, I did away with this and this and this. That's basically a pro mod truck. So he's getting away with everything, and I was like, all right, that's what I'm going to do. So we blocked a bunch of stuff off. I ordered a radiator. It was a Mishimoto radiator cap adapter that you can just order on their website. And I had my buddy at KA Metalworks aluminum welded on there, because if anybody knows me, I am not a welder at all. So when it comes to fab and stuff, I have to outsource it. Luckily, I have some really good guys that work around us that we work together. But anyway, so did that. Knew I had to add an overflow can. I don't remember where I got that one, probably Summit Racing or something. And got an overflow on it. That way, if it does puke out any coolant or whatever, we blow a head gasket or just any kind of coolant pressure that's exceeding the 18 pounds that we put on the radiator cap. It's got a place to go and not on the track or under the hood. And ran a line all the way out to the back of the truck. So that way, everything's behind the tires. Basically just modified the whole under hood part to make it easier to work on, because I don't want to spend a lot of time on there between rounds or if something happens. I mean, it literally would take me 20 minutes to change out a set of injectors if I needed to. I don't have a spare set, but eventually we will get a spare set. And if we need to swap them out, everything is just right there and accessible. We're using a Edge CTS3 for data logging. I love looking at data on these trucks. That's kind of why I do what I do. Most of the diagnostic here at our shop, I try to take care of whenever it comes to any kind of check engine light and stuff, or somebody says, hey, I feel something like a shutter or whatever. I love looking at data. So the CTS3 was the best budget option for us. We use it to monitor fuel pressure, drive pressure, and boost pressure. And on gate pressure, we're making 1-to-1. It's 50 pounds of boost and 70 pounds of drive. So it's really close to 1-to-1, which was pretty amazing to me. But yeah, we got about that far, and then it was down to wheels and tires. The wheels I kind of went with because they were the cheapest option, and it's a 10.5-inch wide wheel. It's I had Moto Metal. I don't remember the style of it, but it's a 17 by 10, and they are light. So anybody that's getting into this racing scene that doesn't want to buy a set of Bogarts or some really light aluminum wheels, that it's a really good option. The the tires are a Hoosier ET bracket radial, and I'm gonna be honest with you, man, extremely impressive. If you know anything about tires, a bias ply on drag racing is extremely forgiving, and the ET bracket, a radial, you either stick or slip. There's no in between, So that kind of got us to where the truck is now. Moving forward, we plan on racing this thing until it just sends a rod to God or a turbo or something. I'm pretty hard on stuff.
One of the really cool things about your build and listening to it is, sometimes chatting with people, they'll go through the story of it and they go down one road and then they want to change it to something else and then something else because they either didn't know where to look or didn't know who to ask. But I can tell when you were putting this truck together, you went to the people who have done it or, that work in it or have raced themselves to be able to get all the information that you could to maximize, the money you're spending, the time that you're putting into it, be able to get to that point. I think that's a really crucial part of, the whole build of the truck is how you reached out to, there's a lot of people that you mentioned to be able to get their experience and maximize it. I think a lot of people, if they want to go down this route and build a truck, is, through social media, through podcasts, through tons of things, you can find out who these people are and, reach out to them. And a lot of them, they want to help. They want to give you the information. So I can see how that put your build and your goals, it just allowed you to achieve them, I think, quicker and easier than if you hadn't done any of those things.
Yeah, if I put a timeline in from start to finish of taking it from a blown up pipe street truck to first day on the track 2 Sundays ago, it is, I started on it right before my sons were born, and they're 7 months old today, or last week. So 7 months. And you're right. If I had any advice for anybody that's trying to get into this stuff, contact somebody. Me, Charlie, Austin, Charlie Keeter. That guy's, he still knows, a lot of things about this platform. I mean, just anybody that you feel comfortable asking questions, how to get, what they use and what alternatives they would use. What did they start out using? What route they would have went, in the beginning of doing this stuff, because it's hard to, it's like life, man. You have a line that you want to go to a finish line, right? But everybody knows there's always a curveball. So just doing that is getting a hold of somebody that has some experience in the industry and racing these trucks and all-wheel drives. And it doesn't even always have to be somebody in the diesel field. I mean, there are times that I would contact, old friends of my stepdad's that were racing cars back, in the 70s and early 80s. And I'm like, hey, how did you get this to hook? How did you hook this up? But yeah, it was, I don't find a stranger, and that's kind of my personality. But, if I had any advice, somebody getting into this industry, don't be afraid to reach out. I get, I don't know how many messages on all my social media platforms asking questions about the truck. And I am more than welcome to have a conversation with you. Like, I had a kid the other day ask me about using nitrous on his truck. I'm gonna be honest, I've never used nitrous on anything. I wanted to get outside and spray the lawnmower just to see, hey, what's the lot? And, but I was like, I made a post on one of the forums. It's Fire Punk Racing Diesel Forum on Facebook or something like that. It was one of the diesel racing forums. Never used nitrous before, what's a good starting point? And one of the guys that really reached out to me, his name is Scotty Bergeson. He owns Abilene Diesel Performance up in Abilene. And so I started chatting with him, and that guy has helped me out a lot with the nitrous. This weekend, we're racing at No Prep Kings here in Baytown. And I told him, I was like, hey, I'm turning on a kit. It's either going to blow or go. And he's like, good, I think you'll do great, because we're going to be racing in the 7.0 class. And but just reaching out to people, man, just make a friend, I mean, Oliver at O-Dogs, the first time I contacted him on the phone, we sat on the phone for an hour. Everybody in this industry, we're all just humans, There's nobody greater than anybody else. There's just more knowledge, right? So don't be afraid. It's totally fine. These people get hundreds of messages a day. Yours isn't going to hurt, And that's the way I see it. And now, how they see it, I have no idea. I could be a pest, but you know what? The squeaky wheel gets the grease, right?
Yep. Well, does it? Well, I think it's really important. not just for, a truck build, but, you had mentioned with business and personally and other things is being able to network. And I don't remember where I heard it or somebody said it to me one time or where I saw it, but they said your net worth or your network equals your net worth. And yeah, that applies to business, but I think it also applies to like the information and the build you had. And also, with other things in business, not necessarily related to money, but the more people you can reach out to, the more people who have gone down this path, and also expanding that, like you mentioned, reaching out to people who were in the gas world, racing those things. We're starting to see that more and more, I think, in diesel performance and in the racing, some of the platforms, where they're putting this engine in a Nova or some other type of car and take that information. So I think it's a really key takeaway for people listening, whether they're looking at a build or they're looking at their business or they're just looking at, starting something new, is, just reach out. And I know me personally, sometimes that's been hard if you go to an event or a show and I see this person I've looked up to for 10 years. I'm like, do I want to go over there? I really don't want to bother him. He looks kind of busy. But passing this knowledge on is what makes this next generation want to do this stuff, makes them want to work on trucks, race trucks, design a part for trucks, whatever it might be. So it has to be passed on.
Yeah. And I I completely agree, man. What people don't understand is that this is I'm not going to say it's dying, but it's on a downward slope. We have so many things pushing against us to do the things that we want to do and that we're passionate about and that we love, right? So
Yeah.
we have to push our knowledge to the youth, and because they're our future, whether we like it or not. I mean, we're not all Vietnam vets. We haven't all seen it all, but what knowledge that we do have, if we pass it down and give it to these younger guys, let's just say, in the diesel industry, owning a shop or running a shop, you have the kids that just want to roll coal on everybody, biggest set of injectors and the biggest turbochargers, and they don't understand why they're not making power, but they see a lot of black smoke coming out of the tailpipe. And then you have somebody that knows the setups, knows that, this injector, this turbo, will work together, and they make power efficiently, right? And that's kind of where we're headed. If you watch any of these guys that are racing in these big classes, Justin Ziegler, Ryan Milliken, Dustin Sterling with his Duramax, even Dorian with his Powerstroke, 6.7 Powerstroke. When those guys, they're staging and they go down the track, it's clean, But yeah, passing information is key to our success in this industry. There was one other thing that we kind of hit on. What was it? Hell, I don't remember. But
there was something you touched on in the build about data, and I think that's played a huge role as well into the cleaner power and the things like. I remember the days when there was just a monitor and you could see like 20 things, but you really wouldn't necessarily in a performance application care about more than a couple of them, where now you want to know the data, you want to know the dry pressure, you want to know all these things going on. And I think that's been an incredible tool, not just for like a build like yours, but then also when some guy just comes in with his truck is like, hey, the check engine light's on, or why is this going on? You could probably spend hours, trying to guess it, or you jump into the data and get the feedback from it.
Yeah, I mean, dude, here at my shop, we'll do some work on a truck or tow trucks. There's a lot of diesel tow trucks around here pulling cars around. There's hot shot drivers and stuff like that. And those guys come into my office and they're like, "Hey, man, the truck's acting funny. It's got a check engine line on." I'm like, okay, well, let's go out there and look at it with the scanner. And a lot of the times they're like, "Man, I wish I had one of those to just keep in my truck." And I'm like, you know what? They make them.
You can buy them.
You can buy that.
It's not cheap, but you can buy it.
Yeah, and I keep CTS 3s on the shelf because, in all honesty, that's probably the best entry level data logger that you can get. And I push it on those guys big time. I mean, if I had 10 on the shelf, I could sell 10 in a week. And the downfall is that these guys don't understand what they're looking at. But if you sit there and you tell them like, hey, your engine coolant temp, your engine oil temp needs to be within this delta, and specifically for the 6-liter platform. I mean, that was a big deal with the coolant and the oil deltas having an issue, causing other catastrophic failures, and just routine maintenance stuff that people lack to do. But just having that information at your fingertips could save you thousands of dollars. And hell, dude, I think the CTS3 is going for like less than $500 right now, just for data, and you give those guys a little bit of information, and I have them call me all the time. They're like, hey, I'm seeing this. What do you think? And well, typically we can get really close. I wouldn't say 100% diagnose the problem over the phone, but a lot of the times we can at least generally get into the right direction, So again, passing information. And everybody out there in this industry that I've learned, going to UCC, going to any of the diesel truck meets in this area, like I'm part of Houston Diesels. It's a big truck club here in the Houston area. I mean, I think we have like 3,000 members or some crazy number like that. And, initially you get into a truck club or you start something new, you're kind of nervous. You're the new guy on the street. Nobody knows you. You don't know anybody. And man, the first event that I went to for Houston Diesels or UCC, I walk in there and hey, how's it going? I'm Justin. Oh man, hey, how's it going, dude? Can we look at your truck? Can I ask you a few questions? Oh, absolutely. Well, hey, my build at home is going this route. What do you think? Well, from experience, this is the way that I would push it instead of that. All right, cool. I'll take that into consideration, moving forward. It's amazing. This community, the diesel community, is like a family. You have haters, but sometimes you just got to brush those guys off, because at the end of the day, they don't, haters are going to hate. Let them.
Yeah, I think it's some of those external things you mentioned have kind of forced, in a way, this kind of evolution where, I remember a long time ago, you'd go to like the racetrack or something and somebody's got a truck and you want to ask them questions and it's, super secret stuff that they don't want to share. But I think the pressures with, emissions, the pressure with, electric vehicles, the push for it, we all kind of realize now, hey, there is a place for diesel. You're always going to need them, but we got to pull in, enthusiasm. The kids that are at the track, get them hooked, and they do. They see it, and it's really cool for them, and it's different. So I definitely can appreciate that, and I think that's a big part of it going forward. Now, you did mention, or we were talking before the podcast a little bit about the fastest Powerstroke list and some goals. So I wanted to ask you, looking forward with this truck, what are you shooting for next? What do you want to achieve with it?
So this year and possibly part of next year, we're going to stay on this setup. And like previously, I push things to the absolute limit. So we're going to see what the 368 can handle. And once that's over, we're going to go with some really big injectors, a really big turbo, dual pumps, and a lot of nitrous. So I think right now we have Austin Denny and Charlie Fish in the world fastest 6-liter Powerstrokes. That's kind of that's the realm I want to stay in. I don't want to get outside of that. Anything common rail is just going to whoop up on us. It's inevitable. Those guys have like we were talking data. They can adjust things, so minutely to make umpteen, little bitty adjustments to make big horsepower gains. I'm not saying I'm going after those two guys because I am in a quad cab truck. So it's extremely heavy, but any other quad cab 6.0 guy that's out there that's on that list, and I'm gonna exceed what they got going on. So we got some big things in the work. We'll pull the motor out, put a different cam in it, and probably some new pistons, different style of pistons. Make it a low compression motor. That way we can shove a lot of nitrous in it. The truck's already made. I mean, honestly, dude, it's ready to rock and roll right now. It's just whether I have the time or money to mess with it. But I really am. When we were at Texas Truck Jam, I was really impressed with the way that the truck operated and got down the track as fast as it did. I mean, hell, dude, there's no secrets here. I was running 750s consistently at Texas Truck Jam, trying to run a 7.0 class and 770 class. So we were a little bit fast, so we were pedaling in the 770, which was the class I was going for. Anyways, I entered into the 7.0 just to get some data, but that event is a blast. If you're in the Texas area or close to NS Texas during Texas Truck Jam, I had a good time. And there are some great people out there. Like we pitted with Walmsley Diesel and who else was there? Alex with Summit Diesel. Those guys they're awesome. This guy right here at Redemption Diesel, Tanner, he's a jam up dude. We hung out with all of them, and they're all just a bunch of help, man. I mean, it was a last minute scramble to try to get the truck and trailer and RV up there because it was me and my girlfriend, and we took our two sons that are 7 months old, and it was hot. But I mean, yeah. So moving forward, I'm gonna try to push the truck into the 590 class. I mean, that's just kind of, again, I like to push the limits of things, so that's where we're going with it. We'll get there. I've got a guy that we're already talking to about building a cage for it to push it into the 670 index, and if it'll do it on the small charger, or if we gotta bump it up to something else, but if we do go to a T4 frame, that kind of opens up a big window for us for making big power on whatever injector size we want. But yeah, expect to see us at UCC with some big power.
Well, it was really cool to chat with you today, and like I said, I appreciate you messaging into us on Instagram, and once I saw that truck, I'm like, man, I got to do an episode on this because we have a lot of 6-liter fans, Powerstroke fans in general, or just guys who love diesel. And I know there's going to be someone listening that kind of wants to do this build and might have their own take on it, but they want to be able to check out your truck, reach out to you. Where can they find you on Instagram or any other places, to ask you questions or just, kind of get some help with their build before they, jump all the way into it?
So Facebook, it's Justin Quartz. We also have a racing team Facebook. It's a Twin Bros Racing Team. Instagram is South Texas _6.0L. And then we also have a racing team Instagram, which is Twin Bros Racing Team. Any of those, if they message me, it's going to be me. My girlfriend kind of helps with the Twin Bros Racing Team Instagram, but she doesn't have the technical answers for some questions. But more than happy to talk to you guys. Hell, even a lot of the times I'll hand out my personal phone number, just so that we can chat over the phone because it's a lot easier for me a lot of the time. But yeah, I mean, y'all can contact me on there, and I'll get you headed in the right direction to at least get to where I'm at now.
Well, I appreciate your time today, Justin. I look forward to following your truck in the future, and keep us updated on it. Keep sending us pictures or videos you at the track, and let us know whenever that piston decides to go to God. I
don't know about it. Yeah,
awesome.
Everybody will know.
Awesome. It was great chatting with you.
All right, man. It was a pleasure, buddy.
Don't forget, diesel fans, make sure and head on over to our Discord. If you're not signed up there, definitely do that. If you listen on podcast apps and you want to be able to see the guest and the trucks that we have on our YouTube channel. We do video. Make sure head on over there, subscribe, and then hit the bell so you get notified when we release episodes. I want to give a special shout out to some of our Patreon sponsors. We've got Texas Diesel Supply, Wrights Diesel Services, Kaleb, Tyler Loewen at 23 Diesel. There's so many others on there, as well as everyone who has subscribed to us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, podcast apps throughout the years. We appreciate that. You guys, you're who keep us going, keep us on our toes, asking us great questions, things you want to hear about. So we appreciate your support. Until next time, keep the shiny side up.